Hey folks, welcome to the Redneck Country Podcast. This is Todd, and I am on with the real redneck, the almost guy, Mr. Bill Thom. Bill, are you there?
I am here. Good evening. Another great day for a podcast.
It is another great day for a podcast. It's actually a good day for a podcast because it's a little bit chillier outside now, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, I've got the warm clothes on tonight. Opened up the house, turned the air conditioning off, and I said, let's put some warm stuff on.
Yeah, no doubt.
Summer went away.
It did. It went down to like 14 degrees or something crazy like that.
You guys get a bunch of storms over the last 24, 48 hours?
Not really. We got a little bit of rain, but it didn't have any storms. Why, you have some big storms?
Sure did. Rolled through here from the weekend and on. I mean, it's I got a little bit of a leak in my sunroom, and it was a big leak because of the amount of rain that we got. But yeah, everything else, we're pretty fortunate that there was no major damage around here. Trees are all up and standing, and we're happy and healthy. So what more can you ask for, right?
Yeah. No, I agree. That's awesome. We and rain is a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
To quote the Luke Bryan, if I can.
Yeah.
But no, we just had some rain. We didn't have any big storms, not like a couple weeks ago, so that was all right. Which was good because I helped my father build his shed/cottage, and
nice.
got that all done, and except for we just got the cap to go on the roof, so I actually had to put plastic where the peak was and tape it on the roof until that comes in. So we were prepared for the little bit of rain we got. I'm glad we didn't get a storm.
He's happy.
He is ecstatic. It's exactly what he wanted.
That's awesome. Hemlock, and that was the wood that you guys chose to do the project with?
It was. We got a buddy that owns a mill, and we went down there, and he had these massive trees and said, like, do you need something kill dried? And because I got some stuff, but it's a little more money, or I've got these giant trees I just cut that's hemlock, and I'll cut them for you, and you can take them, but you might want to let them dry, at least air dry. They're going to shrink some. And I'm like, you know what?
Sure.
We're doing like 12-inch boards with a 8-inch with another 12-inch batten, leaving 8 inches of space. So we're giving them 4 inches of shrink, 2 aside. I don't care. They'll shrink on it. And if they start to pull screws, we'll drive some more because Dad wanted it to look rustic. So that's what we did. And it did. It turned out well. Now, that doesn't say it doesn't go without, well, let's just say anybody in the neighboring area definitely knew, aside from the screw guns going and that we were working on this, because that's just my family. That's how we roll. We're together so much that tensions are always high, patience are always thin, and it's just, are you going to listen to me? And he's not on to tell his side, so I get to tell my side.
Yeah.
And are you going to listen to me? Are you going to listen to me now? Because I was right the last 10 times. And I know he's going to go for his walk and listen to this. Goes, no, he wasn't. I was right 10 times. But that's the beauty of him not being on.
Oh, for sure. He's going to have to come on and vindicate himself here somehow. But any tools get tossed and people get pushed off the roof, or we're all still friends at the end of it? Yeah,
we don't get that mad. It's just the patience. It's you know what I mean? It's just arguing. We get arguing, which is, I mean, that's our relationship. It's always been that way. So it's a term of endearment. If I didn't care, because it's my dad and I knew he had this vision is why I care. So I want it done right for him. And so if I didn't care, I would have just slapped it together.
Well, as long as he's happy, you're happy, and he's got a place to get away and enjoy it. And I'm anxious to see some pictures and see what it looks like.
Oh, yeah. I'll fire you some pictures. It did. I actually impressed myself. My wife's cousin, he builds barns for a living. And so he owns a construction company. And I mean, he is so successful. They're booked up, like January comes, by February, they're booked for the year. So A, he's my advice and my advisory board. But B, I would fire him. I'm like, hey, I'm brushing up my resume. You ever need somebody? And I'm fired it off. He's like, hey, that looks pretty good. I'm like, dude, I impressed myself. Let me tell you something. The fact that me and Dad knocked this thing out, I was impressed. Like, we built trusses. And then it happened over Father's Day weekend and the next weekend too, which kind of made it special too, right? So
sure.
So yeah, so
it didn't look like something at a Whoville, did
it? No, because Mom was right there, and I wouldn't let it. There was a few times we could have cut some corners that I backed about. Wait a minute. Now we've done this. We're not rushing just to finish it, and with the excuse that it's got to look rustic, so you can cut, but we didn't. No, and it turned out quite well. I was quite impressed.
Good deal.
And we came through Father's Day. So how was your Father's Day? What'd you do?
Awesome. We had a great time this weekend. I continued on with the boat project.
Yeah.
And
how'd that go?
So that good. I mean, we're getting to a stage right now. I'm going to start to put things back together. I've got motor off, completely cleaned out inside. Outside is all pressure washed, cleaned up. Transom needs to be replaced. I got some Baltic birch. I'm going to be getting a sheet of 1/2-inch Baltic birch and laminating it together this weekend so I can start the reassembly process. So Hunter's really taken to it, doing a great job helping out and not complaining one little bit, getting up early, working hard. And it was good, but
that's good.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, that was Saturday, and then Sunday for Father's Day was an absolute amazing day with the family. They treated me to a morning at our local archery shop.
Oh, no doubt.
Yeah. So our local spot is a Wolf Den Archery, just one road over, and they have a 3D archery course. They have targets set up so you can go and shoot your bow. They have 2 bass fishing ponds that are stocked bass fishing ponds. And you have a picnic lunch if you want to bring your lunch with you. And we as a family went out and shot the bows and did some fishing and ate some, snacks and stuff around the fish pond. And it was awesome.
Dude,
I tell you, it was just,
I am so jealous. That is so awesome. Yeah. That is awesome. That's wicked.
Yeah, that's how we roll up here, and I'm sure you roll that way down there too. But it was just one of those days. I don't need a card. I don't need anything. We spent time together as a family. We made some memories. We fished around a pond. It was just an amazing day. And Candace, the kids treated me like a king there. In the afternoon, I had a nap. It was great.
In the afternoon, I had a nap. See, I was not that luxury. I didn't have that luxury. Working on a shed, and we went down and seen Jen's folks down at their property. They built a house, and then they got like a little campground that they built along the edge of a creek. So they wanted to have a barbecue on the fire or a cookout on the fire. So we had hamburgers and stuff for lunch and did that and then came home. So it was pretty good. But I got to give a shout out because I got a mutual buddy of ours came through for me with one killer Father's Day gift for my dad. And it was pumpkin.
Oh yeah!
Did you see it on Facebook?
That.
Yeah. I saw. Yeah. I seen these, and I don't know how. I just happened to see it. I had the idea. I seen somewhere, and so I thought, you know what? So Dad's got his trap gun, and he's tried. He's bought another trap gun with all the bells and whistles, and like adjustable comb, adjustable stock, all that jazz. That he's like, I'm too old to deal with this. He shoots a Winchester 101 diamond grade, and he's got sister guns. They're like a serial number apart, where he's got a double barrel for doubles, and then he's got the unsingle for singles and handicap and trap shooting. And so he doesn't shoot a lot of doubles, and so he pretty much lives and dies by this 101 unsingle with a big high rib on it. And so I thought, he's not going to get another gun in this lifetime. He's set on that one. He's tried and didn't want to do it. Didn't want to have to. He had it for 2 weeks. Maybe he put 2 rounds through it and was like, I'm done. I don't even want to adjust this thing anymore. So I thought
it's a great gun. That one that
that's the one that your wife bought, right?
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. So your wife now, we cut the stock down. We got it all fit for her. So that is that gun. But yeah, he put maybe 2 rounds through it and was like, I'm done. I don't even want to bother adjusting it. So he knows where his gun shoots and he shoots it good. Yeah. So why even bother?
That's right.
So yeah. So at that point I thought, okay, he's never going to change again. So I seen this and I thought I gotta see if I can get one made. So I got to give a big shout out to our buddy, Mr. Thom Howe. And his business is Thom Howe Cowboy Silversmith, because he knocked out a custom for my dad with my dad's initials on it and a clay target breaking in silver and gold and end cap to go on the pistol grip part of his shotgun, of his trap gun. So
it's beautiful.
And it turned out better than I thought it could have. When it's on the gun, it looks so amazing. It just sets that gun off. And so it was so pumped. Like custom silversmith, Thom is a talented man. So Thom, if you listen to this, thank you. And if anybody wants anything made, buckles or anything, Thom Howe, Cowboy Silversmith, and that's Howe, Howe. And
he is top shelf from everything he does. He's a great guy, excellent to talk to. Super nice, and the work he does is second to none.
Well, and that's it. And he's just a good guy. Yeah, like he's just a good guy all around. You just want to hang out with Thom. Like he's just a cool guy. When I went to get it, I mean, we were there for quite a while hanging out and talking. And so he is just that guy. I mean, he is just an awesome dude. He's come and shot the Redneck Country clinic a couple times and come down. He was in the magazine that featured us. So with you, there's you're in his picture, but yeah, we know him from the rodeo. He is a bull riding judge for the Ram Rodeo and was a bull rider at one time, and he's now hurting and feeling it, but he's still a good dude. Oh, he's awesome.
That's right. Good deal. Yeah, no, that looked good. I'm anxious to see that in person. Your dad was happy with that too. I can't. And so why I'm so pumped is, like I said, he's never going to get rid of that gun, but now I've never sold any of my trap guns that as I've upgraded. The gun I have today, Tom's making me one for my gun now, but I'm not going to have my initials put on it. I'm going to have CC, the Clay Crusher logo put on it, the C's with a target break, just because I may sell my gun at some point. And so to have my initials on there and put on and not coming off for somebody else to buy it, they would have to do something with this pistol grip cap on it. And for my dad, he's never going to change. So I thought this now is going to create an heirloom so that he can hand it down. I can put it on my wall. And that was my kids will be able to say that was their grandfather's gun. And I know you've done it with Tom's made you spurs, if I'm not mistaken, so that you can sure did.
Yeah, you can pass them down from your bull riding days, and your kids can say this was your grandfather's spurs, and be able to tell their kids all about it. So that was kind of the thought process behind it, and it turned out just awesome, just rock star status.
So it sounds like you had a pretty good Father's Day too, and your dad's pretty happy, but it's also good. We got a special guest on today, don't we? We do. We got somebody that wants to come on and share some stories. They're a hunter. They are part of their, I'm not going to say too much because I want him to correct me where I'm wrong, but I know him from putting on a big buck outdoor show. Redneck Country went and put a booth up to advertise our trap shooting clinic and advertise our Hunter Classic, and then to sell some hats and hoodies and stuff like that. And so that's how I got to know him. He's a really good dude, and I know he's got some awesome stories to share. And so just happened to be talking to him and said, hey, I'd come on that podcast if you guys... If you would entertain me. And it was probably me more like going, hey, Travis, would you go on the podcast so you can entertain us? But either way, so yeah, I'm kind of looking forward to bringing him on. Sounds good. It's always good to meet new people.
Yeah, so I'll give him a ring right now. Let's get him going. Travis, are you there?
Hello. Todd, how's it going?
It's going, man. It's going. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Excellent. We got Bill on the phone too. Bill, are you there?
Yes, Travis, how you doing? Bill Thom here.
Good, Bill. How about yourself?
Living the dream. Living the dream.
That's good.
Right on. Well, I always start this out whenever we have somebody on that, even with Bill, I can never pronounce somebody's name properly. So I didn't even attempt it. I just said Travis, but I'm going to say Travis Roodzant. Did I say that right? Correct me if I'm wrong.
Pretty close. Roodzant.
Roodzant. Awesome.
Yeah, there you go.
Travis Roodzant.
You got her a lot better than most. I got Rodzant. I got Roodzant. I got a whole bunch of different ones, but you got her pretty close.
Roodzant. All right.
Roodzant. Awesome. All right.
Travis, nice to meet you there.
Nice to meet you too.
So we're pretty pumped because we love having other guests on. So it's not just the two of us conflabbing the whole time, and me going off on massive tangents. And so when you said you'd be willing to come on, I was kind of pumped because really, if we could start with who is Travis, and I think Bill, you're much better at shaping these conversations than I am.
Yes.
And folks, this is where it is us sitting around a campfire having a conversation. None of this is planned out. We are just off the cuff. So I think we should start with who is Travis from an outdoors perspective. And I know you. I will prelude that by saying I know you because you organize the Rodney Big Buck show, and you bring in the guys from Frau to measure antlers and turkeys and all that fun stuff. And then on top of that, there's booths. And so Redneck Country comes and sets up a booth, and you're the full-on organizer of that. But who else is Travis? Tell us about that. And then who else is Travis?
Yeah, so we've been doing the Rodney Big Buck and Outdoor show for about 3 years now. Honestly, started out probably the same conversation we're having now. A few of us just sitting around, just talking, and had the idea and kind of ran with it. So I'm vice president on the Rodney Agriculture Society, and we were kind of looking for new fundraising ideas, and that was kind of what we ran with there. So it's a big fundraiser we have for our local agriculture fair weekend, and so we thought we'd set it up and see how it goes, and we had some good success the first year and second year, and now within the third season here, it's been great. And having people like yourselves there and Redneck Country guys and Frau and all these taxidermists and stuff like that, it's great having it out there. So originally it started out with Claire Tricky, and she's wild taxidermy there located at Rodney. We kind of had the idea, and a few other members of our board joined up to help plan it. And there's probably about 10 to 15 of us together to put that event together. Wow. and that. So.
And it is successful. I don't know about dollar values, and I don't think we need to get into that, but I consider it successful from the amount of booths that you have and in the amount of people that come through. And like the first year that we came down, I had absolute blast. I mean, I was having a riot with that booth set up, and then having so many people because it's kind of in my backyard to an extent that I know a lot of guys. So you have a lot of folks coming through, which was a blast. And then I even got to bring my turkey tail and got it measured and found out that it was somewhat of an Ontario record, which I didn't have a clue. And so it was a good time all around. And then we missed a year and we went back this year, and it was just as awesome this year. I mean, I don't know on your attendance numbers or dollar values, but I think from me being there and watching everything happen, and just the simple fact that what I like to push is the build community, it definitely does that. I mean, it was an absolute rocket time. We even have you guys have a local hero that's a close buddy of mine from the shooting world, the trap shooting world, of Ray Axford. And I did not realize how big of a hunting celebrity this dude is. I just happened to message him and say, hey, Ray, we're setting up a booth at the Rodney Big Buck show there. If you want to come hang with us, I got a chair for you. And so lo and behold, he showed up. And he came right over and sat. And I'll tell you what, I don't think that he wasn't able to breathe the whole time. There was every 2 minutes somebody new was coming. There was like a lineup just to talk to Ray. And to me, that was successful in itself, because you've got a lot of new hunters coming through that knew him, that he had taken under his wing, and then old hunters, and then his hunting group that was still out hunting and was missing him, and just because of some arthritis issues and stuff, he couldn't go. And so it was kind of cool just to watch that, and then to see everybody come in with their racks and their mounts to get measured and stuff. I mean, it's pretty successful event as far as I'm concerned, aside from dollars that you raise, aside from any of that. Like it's pretty cool. It is a neat experience.
Getting the community together is always a good way to promote our sport and what we're doing. And Travis, yourself, you do hunt and fish.
Yeah. So I've only been hunting for 6 or 7 years now. Just always been interested, outdoors guy. I mean, I love spending time just walking around the bush, checking things out, kind of seeing animals, seeing things interact. So it was kind of natural I was going to get into it eventually. Kind of been a learn on my own type of thing. Just got into it and said I'm gonna try this. Got my license. Started out with a crossbow. Had success my first year hunting. Second time out, I was able to harvest a nice young buck. and then just you got me hooked, right?
That'll do it.
Since then, getting more and more into it. Deer hunting, rabbit hunting, turkey hunting, coyote hunting. I've been occasionally going out for groundhogs for guys that are causing problems on farms for them.
No doubt.
The squirrels, so kind of everything just starts. Yeah, that's
groundhog. Todd, I don't know if you ever.
I have never. I'll tell you, my father-in-law and when my brother-in-laws. I'm going to go on a tangent, and forgive me already, Travis. But my brother-in-law.
That's how it works, Travis.
Yeah.
Just let you know.
Hey, we're just sitting around a fire. You got to muzzle me.
Yeah.
So my brother-in-laws, they're quite a bit younger than me, and so like almost half my age. So when they were younger. My father-in-law got the youngest brother-in-law, and I don't know how old he'd have been. He'd have been maybe 12, and so I was in my 20s, and we had bows all shooting out, and so he got the 12-year-old bow and went and did his apprentice huntership thing, and then they decided that there's a couple farmers that had groundhogs issue problems, and so they hey, we could go hunt these things. And the only story, I've never hunted them. The only story I remember is my little brother-in-law telling me, it's Coleman, if you're listening, buddy, if you remember this, but they told me he put an arrow right through one, and it tried to, and this is so bad. Forgive me, anybody that this bothers, but this is why I don't know if I could do it. But he put an arrow through one, and before it had died, he put it right through the middle. It tried to run back in the hole, and it was there hanging over the hole, trying to run in, but the arrow was on both sides, which is such a bad story. Now that I think about it, I may have to edit that out, but that's one reason I didn't want to go groundhog hunting, because that poor guy.
We used to hunt up in Ottawa Valley for groundhogs, and I had a Cooey single shot 22, and that was the how I got into hunting. To be honest with you, Travis, I'm sure you can talk to some of the groundhog hunting stories. It makes you a better hunter by learning how to stalk and get into the right position and shoot. And groundhog hunting can be a lot of fun, and it helps out your local farmers.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting. It's almost unlike any hunting I've ever done. I'm going to say there's a lot of forgiveness to it, in my experience. Just, you're setting up, and I used to go out to an old gravel pit that was right next to a customer of mine. It's one of his farms. And so we go walk around, and you see him once in a while running off, and then we just sit on top of a gravel pile and just scout, just look out, and you'll see one pop out of a hole. And, back then I may not have been the sharpest shot, because usually the first shot I would miss. But it don't take long. That groundhog is nice and curious and then pops back out. So you usually get a second shot if you do miss the first one. And it's interesting that way. They're always running around, popping out, and they're just running out the holes. And yeah,
I'm picturing whack-a-mole at a fair. I'm sorry, that's all I can picture right now is that.
And honestly, it sometimes that's how it is. I've had experiences where I was taking one of my buddies out, and that day I was shooting my 223 because I knew we were shooting a little bit further that day, but he had his semi-auto Cooey out or semi-auto out, and so I was letting him shoot quite a bit. And he was just open sight, so he's popping and missing. But sure enough, 30 seconds later, that groundhog pops back up to start looking around to see what was going on, and eventually he did get him. Yeah, but yeah, it's kind of it's as close to whack-a-mole I think as hunting can get.
Yeah.
Now I got to do it. Now I'm
yeah, it's fun. I tell you what, it's a lot of fun. Yeah. So and then you had some success at deer hunting. A lot of people go a lot of years, Todd, and don't have that sort of success.
I was gonna cut him off and go, I hate you already. Like that's just how it is. I went 4 years when I was younger without even getting a deer in front of me to pull a trigger on, and guys like you, Travis, my second time out, I shot a buck, and then I was hooked, and it's like, shut up. But,
yeah, I can probably tell you 1,000 stories of unsuccessful hunts too. But that year I was very lucky and fortunate to be set up right. I mean, I set up my tree stand out at one of our farms, and had big plans to go hunt that a lot, and got out there once, and didn't see a whole lot. And then one night on my way back from work, just out on a whim, I'm like, I'm gonna go sit here, and I just walked out to a spot I thought looked good, kind of a little bit of an open patch of field between two pieces of bush there, and and sat out there, saw a couple does off in the distance, and then finally saw one younger buck pop out from across. He's about 200 yards away, and I hit the grunt, and he about 20 minutes just meandered, flipping off, eating soybeans, meandered right in front of me, and just presented a broadside shot, and that was a rush. And I mean, it was a bit of a tracking job. When I did pull the trigger on the bow, I noticed he did take a step forward, so I hit a little far back. So kind of being new at it, I called up one of my neighbors there that I grew up with. He's hunted his whole life, and I said, Mike, I just shot one. What do I do? He's like, just go home, sit back for 2 hours. We'll go back. So we went back and picked up blood trail right away, and took us about 3 hours to track him down through the whole bush. I mean, this thing was zigzagging the whole way, and there was a ton of blood at first. Like, soybeans were covered. Jumped between two trees, went into the bush. It was dripping, and we're both like, okay, this thing's going to be down 10 feet in front of us. And had a really good experience of learning to track deer there with him. It would thin out, and literally, sticking your fingers in the ground where the hoof prints are, trying to find an angle on which way he's turning. And so it was kind of trial by fire, and kind of just thrown into the experience of it. And yeah, we ended up getting him, I almost think, dead center of the whole concession. Like, it was a haul to get that thing out.
But you know what? I was going to say, you learned so much. Our goal as hunters is the quickest, cleanest, ethical kill that we could possibly have, to limit the suffering in the animal and to increase the meat and what we have for bounty. But when an experience like that happens, you can learn so much. And the best thing you did, you didn't give up. You went in doubt, you backed out. You learned how to track from the drops of blood to the angles of the tracks you learned so much. You got 10 years worth of experience in 1 year of hunting. It's amazing.
In 1 week.
In 1 week.
In 2 months, right? Yeah. So, and then 3 hours of tracking it. I've been there, done that, right? And then when you find it, oh my gosh, because after an hour, you're starting to think, after half an hour, you're going, as the blood starts, oh my gosh, like, it drives me nuts. And then you got another, you're just following like little tiny drops. I got blood over here. And then, for 2 seconds, you got a big high. And then 5 minutes later, you realize, oh crap, now I lost the blood trail. And to find it after 3 hours, it's just, what a relief. Been there, done that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It definitely feels like a roller coaster of emotion going through that process, especially being as inexperienced as I was at that time.
Yeah, first deer.
One funny thing I forgot to mention, like when he called me up, he's like, just bring a roll of toilet paper with you. I'm like, what is he talking about? That is the best tracking aid I think out there, is a roll of toilet paper, because as you're walking every 10 feet, put a little piece out. When the blood starts to thin out, you can look back with your flashlight and you kind of see, okay, maybe this deer is curving this way, or this is the line, and you kind of retrace your steps back. And that was a cool little trick I learned right off the get-go.
Okay.
My wife kind of laughs at me once in a while, but she's like, why do you always have toilet paper in with your hunting bag? I'm like, well, it's not for the reason you think. But it's for, if we do have to track one, you got that easy aid to look back at.
We got sleeves for the other. But this podcast is just paid dividend. Todd, why do you do these podcasts? And we always say it's really just for our own therapy. Because whether anybody listens or not, when we're done, it's like, that was kind of fun. That was a good time. But yeah, every week is something different. I have just learned, dude, I've been hunting deer for over 20 plus years. My dad taught me I've never used toilet paper, and that's genius. We usually will take our hat and like the last spot of blood, when it starts to trickle out, you'll put it on there. And so that we'll know that's the last spot. We're roughly in this direction. But when you've got that toilet paper line, you could see the angle they're walking on, and you're not trying to vision it, remember where the last drop was. I just learned something new. That's genius. I like it.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I can't take credit for that one, but I think that was something some old hunter taught him back in the day too, was about that. And it's kind of funny because the next day on that same farm, my dad was out harvesting the soybeans, and he kind of called me. He's like, "Why do you have toilet paper out on these soybeans in the field?" So I had to go through the whole explanation of why there, but we had a good laugh about that too. But yeah,
that's
like
awesome.
any age like that, I found it great. Again, gaining that experience from other hunters, I think, is one of the important things. And one kind of why we all do this is to learn from each other is a big important part of it. And that's been fortunate enough at the buck show. I get to talk to a lot of people in the industry and a lot of hunters and a lot of new and experienced hunters, and just, like you said, sitting around the campfire talking about stories like that. They're entertaining, but they're also really educational.
Oh, that's how you learn. It's how we all learn. Yep, absolutely. I love it. That's awesome.
So from that, was that your only harvest, or were you fortunate the next year? Because I know down in your way, you guys got a lot of deer and wildlife that you have opportunity to hunt.
Had a few since then. I farm as a full-time job now, so time is very critical, and I don't usually get out too much in the optimal times, but I do get out quite a bit. Had some good success over the years. I do a lot of setup. I do food plots and mineral stations. And 2 years ago, I just got done a Ducks Unlimited project out on one of our farms. Kind of took some field out of production to put into some trees and some habitat. So I've been able to hunt that quite a bit there too.
I got questions.
Just been great there. But yeah, I get out for some deer hunting. I've had a few good harvests there. Had a real good buck. I think it was 2015 out on actually the farm I live on now. Was out just on a whim. Ended up just sitting at the corner of a gully on the ground, and the wind was shifting on me, and it was just not good weather. So the wind shifted on me, started blowing my wind into the gully where I was kind of banking on something coming out of. So I ended up just packing up and started walking along the ridge of this gully. And, I'd walk 50 yards, stop, hit a grunt call, wait a couple minutes. Did that a few times. And then I go to set up on this one spot, and man, did I not trip on a log and face plant right in the dirt.
You and my dad could hunt together.
Yeah. So I kind of dust myself off, stand up, and into my spot, and I hit a grunt. And 30 seconds later, this buck comes walking down through the bottom of the gully. And he must have been following me for a little bit, because he wasn't on the main trail. I've seen deer on there before, but comes curving around right into this opening, 25 yards downhill broadside shot. And so I took my opportunity and had a real good shot on him, double lung. And he didn't go 50 yards before he dropped. So that was a pretty good rush. And I was pretty happy to get him, especially after that, pretty embarrassing moment of face planting on the ground.
It amazes me how many times when things like that happen, deer show up. I've had it where I've dropped arrows out of my tree stand, hit every rung of the ladder on the way down, and I get a deer coming in to look to see what the heck that was all about.
What are you saying, Bill? That deer are that curious? The numpties, the clumsy people can. No wonder Dad shot himself some serious amount of deer. And then back when I was just a kid, he was a killer duck hunter, like unbelievable, every 6 days a week. And now I know why. The animals come out to watch.
That's it. They're interested to see what us crazy humans are doing.
I think, they're definitely curious animals. I mean, living in the country here, you're always seeing deer out and about, and I do quite a bit of walking around, right? So you might pop out out of a trail into the field, and you'll be staring at a deer, 50 to 100 yards across the field, and as long as you stay relatively still, they're curious. They're looking at you. They're wandering slowly up to you once in a while. If they get wind, if they wind you, they'll spook pretty easily. But they're very serious animals, I've learned. And throughout the years of hunting, I'm notorious. I'll just go for a walk, and I'll sit under a tree in a good spot behind a shrub or something like that, just because I think it's going to be a good spot. And honestly, not a lot of times it is. There's a lot of times where I don't see a thing, but there's those odd moments where you're sitting there in the middle of a bush under a tree, and then the deer just walk right up to you, and they're 10 feet past you. They don't even see you. So they're curious animals for sure.
Yeah, man, we're so far away from deer season. We gotta quit talking about deer hunting. Now I'm getting all in.
Well, I'm curious. I've got a few questions. I'm not sure how deep we want to go tonight, but food plots.
Yeah. So hold on, Bill. Sorry. Quick tangent, because you're right. So as a non-farmer, Travis, we as I'm going to call us weekend warrior hunters, right? So got our jobs and we hunt here, there, and everywhere when we can. And me and Scotty and Bill and that, we'll put in a little more time than maybe your average weekend warrior, but we don't have the privy to the land to be able to put in food plots. Like, I've done them and I'm like begging the landowner, do you mind if there's a little spot over there? Can I have don't plant anything for 10 rows and I'm going to make a little, like, well, what are you putting in my field? Let me read that bag. Let me look at it. But you as a farmer, you could actually get away with it, right? Because this is your land. You've got the ability. Okay, sorry, Bill. You go ahead because I am jealous.
No, yeah, you're right there. I mean, from a food plot, I've tried. I hunt on 150 acres up north in the Ottawa Valley, and we've tried a few food plots from time to time, and not really had a whole lot of success with them taken. And my curiosity sparks with, what do you plant? When do you plant? pH levels of the soils, the importance of that stuff. How much of the size of a food plot you need to be effective? So wondered if you could touch base, because I heard you say you had done some things with even Ducks Unlimited for food plots and I guess for that side. But can you touch on that a little bit? So
I'll start out when I first started doing them. I was working at an ag retail and I noticed our one cover crop supplier was selling stuff for rack stackers. So I'm like, I was curious. So I started reading up on it. And I ended up purchasing a bag of what they call Field Edge, and that's just it's an annual. So it's basically, what that means is it's once and done, right? You plant it once, and it's not going to survive the winter, which I think is important on agriculture land. You don't want to be bringing in other species that can will become a weed or a problem in the field. So I started out with that, and I started just putting it in some small areas that was flooded out at the corner of the bush or something like that. But Dad was always just like, I never get anything to grow there. So I'm like, all right, well, I'll plant a food plot in there. And they have some pretty good charts on timing and everything of that. So I looked at their charts and, I thought it was important that my food plot, I wanted it to be more of a late season forage for them. So when the crops come off, the food's getting a little more scarce. They'll pick away at whatever's dropped in the fields. But, when the snow starts dropping, there's not a lot of food for them out there. So I planted, I think it was late July I was planting that stuff. So that come December, it was relatively green. And if it was snow covered, they were still going at it. And it was amazed, where the snow was on top of this stuff, you could tell the deer were just at it almost every day. And it was
what is in that mix? The late season forage, is it Misobrascus and does it keep them there in the early, and then it germinates at different times, or?
Yeah, so I planted it later, right? So a lot of the staging is just so many days of growth, and it takes so many days to reach maturity of whether or not it was a brassicas or if it was some radishes or stuff like that we were putting in. So you can plant them springtime, but they'll come to full maturity, or at the best stage is a little bit earlier, kind of September time frame. So I pushed to late July. So I knew that some of the stuff was just going to be a little more growthy and a little more at that stage where like to eat it kind of closer to December there, to give them something to chew at. And they were eating that all winter long. Like, I was going back in February, March, and they're still digging up all that snow to get to this stuff. And I mixed some tillage radish in there, but a lot of it was some brassicas, I think it was. I can't quite remember off the top of my head on that specific blend. But I really like the.
Sorry, some of that stuff goes really good when it gets a frost on it. It turns that leaf into a sugary. Yeah, that's right. And you want to time your food plot planning, from my knowledge, to. You're surprised I know this?
No, I'm not surprised at all, because I'm figuring your lifestyle that you're probably out there fighting the deer for it to make yourself a salad to have with your tea. So you're like, well, after a frost, I really enjoy my brassicas and my crushed radish.
it's better for making tea and sandwiches out of Todd. There.
I became a deer hunter because the darn guys were eating my supper.
Well, this is the food chain, right? You feed the deer, you eat the deer, right?
That's it.
I mean, and I think it's a different world we're in, kind of southwestern Ontario, where you have probably the biggest amount of food plots out there. We got corn and soybeans and wheat, everywhere around here.
Yeah.
So they have lots and lots of food. available for them. Basically, once the beans start coming up, the deer are chewing at them, and they'll chew at them until they're basically ready to be harvested. And in the corn, they'll be eating the corn off the plants. I'm just walking around the farm, a little rabbit ran in front of me. Yeah, sorry about that. Getting off topic, but
no, it's all good.
Yeah, when I was planning on doing that, I wanted something that was going to be late season for them. I know when talking to guys, kind of northern Ontario, it's a different story, right? There's just not the food sources around there. So I think it's important in that situation to be using something that's maybe perennial, it'll be coming back every year. A good 4 or 5 years life out of a food plot. And a good mix there. I'm not too experienced with that, but. And
that's what it is. Like, it sounds like I'm bragging, but we've never really had to do food plots. I've only done food plots just because I want to try it and throw and grow. Right. So, and I didn't realize until I started to get down that path, how much of a science it is. But in our area now, we've got an ethanol plant that's right 10 minutes from my house. And so it's corn city around here. And so really for us to have a food, we don't really need it. We got so much land that we were able to hunt that the cornfields, and it holds the deer in our area so much with all the corn in fact, hunters in our area now complain so much because there's too much darn corn and they don't come out of the corn and they don't care to go eat on a food plot that somebody's taken the time to do, because what do they care? They got oodles of corn everywhere. And so that's the biggest thing. But when you do these, Trav, are you doing like a throw and grow, or is it like are you testing the soil for lime? Like, you could do this because you're a farmer, dude. But when I do it, I'm like, you mean I got to test the soil for lime, and then I got to go buy lime, and this ain't happening. First, I got to work the land up. Like, well,
that's it, and that's you know what? Before you answer, Trav, a lot of people that are listening to us aren't farmers, and they need to. For me personally, I would love to know how I could do this without the equipment. Oh, I don't have an ATV.
You got to do the pH. Just doing the pH levels of the soil, right? Like, it's insanity when you get into understanding, planning that, and yeah, like, I'm with you. Don't have an ATV. I'm out there with a manual hoe like our ancestors did, and beating on the ground.
And I'll be honest with you guys. I have never used a piece of equipment when I'm doing a food plot, except for when I planted my trees in that project. But a lot of times I grab a good rake and a hoe, and I just go into those areas of the fields and that are just drowned out or they're not growing. I haven't done pH testing in that situation because we do a pretty good job on our farms for that. But that's an important part to talk about, because pH has such a huge impact on what can grow and the nutrients available to that crop. Again, in here, we're not quite as sensitive to it, but when you go up north, I mean, you're in a whole different world of something that's never had anything like grown on the crop or anything. So yeah, like getting a pH test, you want to have that pH in the right range for the crop you're putting down, and that has a lot to do with just the nutrients that are available in the soil of that pH range. For example, phosphorus is a pretty big nutrient around here for crops. And I know, if your pH really starts to get out of whack, you can have availability issues there, and your crop just is not in the soil being released that crop can get to. So you see a lot of guys up north, testing out, adjusting their pHs into a range. For crops, a lot of times it's 6.3 to 6.7 or 6.3 to 6.7. So
write that down, Bill.
Then, yeah.
Come out of that almost guy phase.
I've got it.
what do turkeys like to munch on?
Crops are like a higher pH, and so you got to really look at what food plot you're doing, or what you have, what species you have in there to find the right range for that. And, we're in naturally acidic soils in the sands where they tend to tail off, so we have to put a lot more lime down. Where up north you may be into an alkaline soil where just is a lot higher than it needs to be. You need to really work at bringing that down.
You'd be planning on typical farmland soil in where you are, if I'm I'm not mistaken, but like where I hunt up in the Ottawa Valley in Northern Ontario, right? So it's cedar bush. So if we had a cedar bush as an example, and it's not all cedar bush, but you clear out a block of bush, or they did clearing of pine trees there. That soil is not for growing corn.
No, not at all.
That soil, it grew pine trees, and it has got years of those needles in the ground. And I'm sure I just can't clean it off a block of, a 10 by 10 section of land and then plant the soil and expect it to grow, crops, right?
Yeah. So in that situation, I think, the most important part is the pH. And you want to make sure you're within a good range of your pH and do some adjustments if you need to. Fertility is a big thing too in areas like that haven't had, fertilizers going down. Simple as it can get, go buy some bag fertilizer like a 16 or something like that with not a whole lot of nitrogen in it. Throw that down so there's at least some nutrients available for the plants.
So
I learned, man. I've learned that you can tell that you are a farmer that knows his stuff. And
you're way past me. I'm like, wow, this all sounds great. Screw it. I'm never doing a food plot again. You talked me plumb out of it. Thanks, Trap. No, I'm just kidding. No, it is fun because I've done it, and it is fun to do and to see it come up. And then when you have deer, because you put your trail camera over the food plot, like there's no ifs, ands, or buts. That's what you're going to do. And the minute that you have, even if the deer was walking through it, you're like, there's a deer in my food plot. It worked. Couldn't change.
Yeah, it worked. There's a success there.
Yeah.
So and you're getting really successful when they start dropping sheds in your food plot. That's a great deal right
now there. I'm planting. Now we're talking. Now I'm planting.
Now we're
food plot. Yeah. So do turkeys come in and like, is it still around come turkey season? Because you're not planting a perennial. Look at that. See that? I got perennial.
No, a lot of that.
Wow.
I haven't seen too many turkeys in there yet, but good. He picked up on that too, eh?
He did.
Perennial. I'm doing it. Perennial. That's 3 syllables, baby. I am up in my game. Travis, you have brought.
I'm learning already. You're perfectly fit for food plots soon enough.
You have brought the Redneck Country podcast to a whole other level. We may have Bill with his tea sipping, salad eating kind of deal, but we weren't putting out 3 syllable words till you came on.
Thanks, Travis.
Okay, sorry. So wow, I didn't expect to be talking about food plots. This is kind of wicked because I don't know enough. Like I said, I bought like a biologic throw and grow. It grew, and I believe Scotty shot a deer in the food plot. Now, full disclosure is where we put the food plot. Scotty shoots a deer there every year, whether there's a food plot or not. So,
well, it depends how you want to talk about the story, but I put a food plot down and we shot a deer.
Yes, that's right. So I've only done that. I haven't but I did look into it some years ago and and I just thought, holy crap. pH levels. At the minute you said pH, I'm like, I remember my dad with his pool when I was younger, trying to keep it from the algae and having to go get it tested. And I'm like, you got to do that with soil. I'm out. I'm done. So I did buy a throw and grow and we worked up the land, which again, manual labor, got to work up the land. So that's a double whammy.
For you, Todd, I can't see how that was going to go well with you at all.
Right?
I think that's a great way to start at, though, with like a throw and go like that. It's simple. It's easy. There's not a whole lot of prep work involved to it. And I think that's a great way to start and get interested in it. And similar to what I did. And, I've gotten a little more in depth into it over the years. I mean, I'm not crazy. Like I'm doing all these food plots every year, but, I want to make sure at least I can have some sort of winter forage for these deer. Keep them healthy during the year. I do a few mineral stations a year, keep those stocked up for them. That's been an interesting learning experience for me as well, is not necessarily the behavioral changes it's done on the deer on our properties, but maybe frequency of visits and how they're passing through has changed, right? Our farm has been a bit of a pass-through area for deer. Some good bush around it, and we have a creek on the one side. So I went halfway through, kind of where they'd always walk around our property. I put a mineral station out in our property, and instead of walking around, they've been going to that mineral station and then going to get a drink of water out of the creek on our property. So it's kind of changed their paths and sort of how they've been traveling through, which has been great for me. I see a lot more deer now because of that.
Well, and it would hold them a lot more too, right? Like we're not in the land of high fence, like down in the States where they got high fence farms and all that jazz. So you're able now to do a little bit of, I'm gonna make a plug on a brand, but you're able to do QDMA, like quality deer management, on your land without the high fence, but you're pretty much doing that. You're going to keep them in the area because you got food all year round. You've got the right habitat. You're now changing their paths and their habits so that they're going to walk by your tree stand. Like you are the quintessential hunter. You say you've only been hunting for 6-7 years, but my man, I am impressed. Like that is that's taking it. I always say turkey hunting I keep for fun. And I'd never want to get that serious. And we screw around a lot. We'll screw up a lot of hunts, but we have a blast. Deer hunting, I'm the opposite. I'm way too technical, but I don't think I'm near as technical as you now with the food plots and being able to reroute their deer trail and everything. But sorry, Bill, I cut you off before I went on that. I just had to say that because I am impressed. That's deer hunting right there. That's dedication.
Yeah, well, I try to focus on the stuff where I can kind of have time to do it, right? I mean, I'll throw a plug at your last podcast. So you're talking about the barometric pressures and that. I mean, I don't get quite in depth as you do on that by any means. I mean, I can't tell you the last time I looked at barometric pressure when I was deer hunting. So that's I would say you're going really intense there, which is great. And it's something I'm going to pick up on and start paying attention to. A lot of what I do is joking around with an old coworker of mine, big avid hunter. I've hunted for 40 years, and he was saying to me, he's like, Travis, if you're ever out driving around in the evening, you see a lot of raccoons or cats walking around. There's deer moving at the same time, so that next morning is going to be a really good time to go hunting because deer are on the move. A lot of times you see other animals on the move like that. I don't know why, but man, is he ever right?
Yep. Moon phases, barometric pressure is on the rise. When it hits that 102, whatever, I have a document that I've created from a little bit of research that I can't even remember the number, but I know Scotty's got it because the minute that barometric pressure hits a certain and it's on the rise, I'm getting a message. We are going hunting. Cancel everything you got. We're heading out because buck movement has been seen 1-to-1 ratio when the barometric pressure is at this number. And I'm going to look that up while we're talking.
That's it.
But
let me ask you a question while you're looking that up. So if you were, based on what I'm hearing there, you're the mineral stations, plots, what do you refer to? Mineral stations, I guess? Is how you
just, so I use a brand Rock Stacker. I've used that for years and I've had success with it and I haven't changed it. I've thrown at other ones and they seem to work just as well. But I think he's done a good job at having a good blend there. And I'll throw those down. And a lot of times I'll try to find some dead decaying logs, dump it on top of that, right? It's going to absorb into that wood and there it's going to last a little bit longer.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'll even grab a pail of water and kind of slowly soak it into that too, just to help it stay in there.
Yeah, we've had some pretty good luck with mineral stations up north. But my question was going to be, if you had to do one, if as a weekend warrior type hunter, and you've got the deer going from bedding areas to food areas, your thoughts and your experience would be the mineral stations would produce more of a pattern change and a patternable experience. Is that what you would say? I
would say maybe, yeah. I would lean towards the mineral stations. Again, if you're not a landowner, some of the landowners might not be open to planting the food plot, but the mineral station would be a good opening to that. Again, it's another source of food or nutrition for that deer population. And yeah, a lot of times, I mean, they're gonna want to go to water afterwards, right? They've been drinking some salts and eating, so that's where I found some success that way. And it's great for the trail cameras. I mean, that's the best thing to throw a trail camera on is right near a mineral station. And it creates some good pictures. And, I try not to hunt directly over them. I try to just put them off in the area where I know they're passing through. So I'll either have a stand in between the bedding area and the mineral station or in between the mineral station and the water source.
Yeah. It's good deal. I mean, that's the knowledge that we like to hear. I like to hear. I know Todd does too, but different hunters, different experiences. And I know that we've tried, everything from the Rack Stacker product. I've tried myself. To be honest, I've tried a few others. We're not sponsored by anybody in particular, but we like to try good things and hear what everybody's using in different sections of Ontario because that's where we're all hunting. I hunt more northern Ontario. You guys are hunting southern Ontario, and I'm anxious and interested to hear what's working in each individual area. So, and there's definitely commonality between products and times and that kind of stuff. So very interesting.
Yeah, no, it's nice to learn off of that too, right? I mean, you might have something that works on in your area and it's not going to work at all in mine. generally speaking, I don't think you do any harm at all. Throwing in a mineral station or something like that, right? Salt licks. I mean, I started with those, and I start burying them 6 inches underground, and the deer just be digging at them. They all seem to work.
No doubt.
I haven't tried out putting 2 next to next and seeing which one gets more action. It's just, I think the important thing is just having that nutrient down for them.
My dad, he had anode rods that came out of his hot water tank, and the rods or the salt on the bottom of the tank. He put onto a log to see what it would do, and I tell you what, the deer absolutely destroyed that log from the natural whatever was coming out of the ground that got filtered into his hot water tank. Ruined the hot water tank, but it helped the deer population around.
Yeah.
Okay, I've got it. And
you got it.
I got it because I saved this article.
Waiting to see how long Professor Google would take to make that happen.
I was biting my tongue because I had it for a bit, but it's Outdoor Life from 2011. I saved this article. I just had to go through my server to find it up. But it was the gentleman that wrote this had asked, Jim Nelson is his name. He was an writer for Outdoor Life. But he asked everybody to send in their trail camera pictures with proper time and date stamps in that year. And then he put it all together. And then he went and he compared it to the barometric pressures on each day at any given time. And so he was able to chart it all out. And the number one, you always would see does move a lot more than bucks. Bucks, big, lazy, whatever. And so the ratio was always more does than there were bucks. And obviously population dictates the same. But he says it was a staggering 1-to-1 when the barometric pressure is between 29.8 and 30. And so in Canada, we measure that differently. That's in inches or whatever the heck they call it, INs, whatever. I say inches, but whatever it is. So it equates to 2, whatever. But anyway, that's what you need to know. 29.8 to 30 is 1-to-1 ratios. And that's when you're going to see bucks start to move. So that pressure, whatever it is, just drives animals insane where they got to get up. They got to get moving.
Well, I'm going to write that number down on my hinting calendar. 29.8?
29.8 to 30 is where
29.8 to 30.
Yeah. And then there's another sweet spot. They say 30.2 to 30.3 is another, but it is not where the bucks move. The buck movement is the biggest at 29.8 to 30 when the barometric pressure is right there. It's massive 1-to-1 ratio.
That's awesome. 29.8 to 30. I remember that one for sure.
So yeah. So the minute it hits that, Scotty, he's all over me. We got to go. Let's go. It's like, all right, we're gone. Well, this is awesome. I love the fact we went all through the food plots because it's not something that we would typically ever talk about, and we never planned that either, did we, Travis? It was just like, hey,
no, not at all.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I was asking you, I'm like, hey, Todd, is there anything I should, any talking points? You're like, hey, man, we're just gonna wing it. That's great. I said that because we're going to get along great because you said you get off on some tangents.
Bill,
that's fine with me.
Bill hates that too. I bring it up often that's our Bill's the yin to my yang, where I live out of my clothes in front of the dryer, where he is the minute his dryer goes off, he's got to fold and put them away. That's our and it dry. He will. Okay, what are we going to talk about this week? Can we make some points? And he's constantly just cut it. I'm like, Bill, if you want, I will. We could point form it out. And then I ignore him until Wednesday when we record often. I
try to say what we're talking about. Anyway, and you know what? 100 times out of 100 so far, it's worked out well. Without any point forward approach, it doesn't do anything. Yeah, it doesn't do anything for my OCD levels or anything like that, my anxiety levels. But I tell you what, his formula seems to be working, and I hope everybody who's listening can say that they're enjoying it. And his lack of planning seems to work. So.
We're all about personal growth.
Yeah. All right.
No, that's awesome. So yeah, this worked out great. So I in the essence of stealing all your time, Travis, because I don't know if you got to hang up on us, but by all means.
No worries. I'm just out walking some soybean fields right now, so this works perfect.
That's awesome. So I initially said, if you would give us one of your, it doesn't have to be your best, doesn't have to be your worst or whatever, your most memorable, whatever your best hunting story. And if you could break it down, and the whole reason we do these is that, like you said, when the way that I learned to hunt was listen to my dad and his buddies and all the old guys at hunt camp tell the same stories. Now they told the same ones year after year at lunchtime. Like my dad will tell you nonstop. If you even walk with them through the woods, I remember a time, but it'll be the same stories, but they beat into your head. So when you're standing in the tree stand, you're like, oh, I'm getting bored. Wait a minute. This was the time that this happened to Dad. I should be cognizant of this. I should watch for this or watch for that. And so it kind of inbred in you. And that's how I've learned to hunt, is now I call on all those stories. So that's kind of why we like to tell the stories, but by all means, no pressure on anything other than whatever your favorite hunt was, your most memorable, or just your recent, whatever you want to tell us, and just with enough detail that we could kind of pick something out of it. And I've already learned so much. I've learned that I'm not going to do food plots because I don't have the patience for pH balance, and we've learned that Bill does like his boracic salads. But aside from that, what is your whatever hunting story you want to tell? I'll hand it over to you. I might even mute my mic.
Oh man,
yeah, that's a lie. I'll try to mute my mic.
Yeah. I guess one of the ones I've learned a lot off of. So 2 years ago we started getting this really, really big buck showing up on my trail cameras. And a lot of that had to do with bringing him in with the minerals and everything like that. But he was showing up on the regular. A lot of times at night, but he was there consistent. So I know where I've been catching him on 2 different trail cameras, and I wasn't having any luck on the one spot, but I have to be very careful hunting the one side of our property because it needs to be east wind. If the gully's on the east side of me there, I've got to come in be in there when the wind's coming out of the east, and which happens quite rarely. You don't get that very often. So finally had a night where the wind was right. I'm like, okay, perfect. I'm going to go hunting. And then my wife calls me and says, oh, by the way, our friends are coming over for dinner. I'm like, oh, okay. So I stayed home for dinner, and I snuck out afterwards kind of late. Got into my spot, tree stand kind of right at the edge of a gully again. Actually, the same, only right near the same area. I got that one big buck back in 2015. I was sitting there, and I was hearing some stuff crashing around. A couple does ran through. And then I kind of heard something up on the ridge across from me, about 100 yards. And I see the silhouette of just a body. And I'm like, man, that's a good sized deer. So I start waiting around, and then he starts walking down the hill. And the first thing I remember seeing is just a rat. And it's big.
And
he just comes trotting down this hill.
At that point in time, your heart, that's all you're hearing is that
thump, thump, thump.
Yeah.
Right? So this thing walks directly into a clearing 30 yards from me. I'm shaking already. It's not like, buck fever after shoot a buck. I'm shaking in this tree going, holy man, this thing's right here. I'm going to get a shot. Okay, calm down, Travis. I'm talking over something.
I've done that. Breathe, Todd. Breathe. Don't have a heart attack.
You got to at 180 plus here. So just don't do anything stupid. Just calm down and just wait. So I got him. He's in this clearing, and he's 30 yards, kind of standing there. I'm like, okay, I'm going to start bringing up my bow. And I can't get a shot at this thing.
What? See, okay, let me pause there.
Little thicket.
So, are you saying it was like a 180-inch animal? Is that what you said it was?
It's big. He's well past his years.
See,
I had dog trail camera pictures of him. He's big.
So I always say this to Scott. And people are telling me stories. And no, I'm not going to slight you. Well, I may, but you can't punch me because you're not here right now, which that's why I like these podcasts. But anyway, so I always say to Scott, I hear stories. It's like, I got a buddy that says, I had a monster come in 15 yards behind me, but I couldn't get a shot. I'm like, 15 yards? At 15 yards, I'm letting that arrow go. I'm praying if it's that big of an animal, it's going to puncture whatever the flips between me and it, and I'm laying it down. I don't care. I will take my chances. So at 30 yards, you got this monster, and is it a crossbow?
Yeah, it's crossbow.
And a crossbow. So at 30 yards, you couldn't get a shot. He was in thicket. Now I say all that.
I tried. It came out, and he was in the clearing, and I was just, there's some twigs in the way. I didn't quite clear enough shooting range that direction, right? Because he was almost not off behind me, but off to the side, right? So I'm lining up, and I can get the crosshairs on him. I just can't see enough clear, right? It's just not quite clear enough. So I'm waiting him out, and he's just standing there. I felt like it was half an hour. Turns out it was about 4 minutes.
Yeah, right. And you're trying.
And
I've been there.
And I'm at the point where I switched to left-handed with the crossbow, and I made a point to always practice with my left hand when I'm shooting target, just in case something like that happens where you can't get over far enough in the tree. So I switched to left, and I'm standing up in my stand at this point, being as quiet as I can. I'm leaning out to the left a little bit, leaning out, kind of crouching, and I got nothing. I cannot find a hole to get through this deer.
Yeah,
and
I've been there.
So I'm just sitting there. I at one point I stepped down on a run on my ladder, and I mean just nothing. So 4 minutes, which felt like half an hour of that, and eventually I was throwing grunts trying to get him to just do something. Right, he was just standing there, and then he wanders back up the hill, and he's gone. And then about 10 minutes later, he comes back to the ridge, and that's as far as I got him. And that was the last time I got to see him that year.
So you never got him?
I could not speak it. I never got him.
I wish I could tell you I don't know how you feel, but I'm the almost guy, right? I'm the almost. I know exactly
the almost
that
guy, Thom. Yeah, so I've had that. I'm chirping you, Travis, but honestly, I've had the same thing and the reason now. The first 4 years, like I said, it was tough for me to get a deer in front of me, but it was also I was trying to get that perfect shot, and so I've done it lots, and now with my black powder, I do not hesitate. If they're within range, I'm taking the shot. I will punch it through thicket and crap. With my bow, I've done it, and then you forever are wondering, if I'd have launched that arrow, would it have got through? Could I have found a spot where they're not looking? And the whole time that you have that buck at 30 yards and you went down a rung, you are like in panic mode because it could see you. It could hear you. Like that's freaking close. And I've done that too. And to be honest, the biggest buck I've ever had in front of me, it was, and I can't believe I'm going to share this because like I just shared the story where I chirp people that go, I had it at 20 yards. And I'm like, just punch through it. He crossed below me along the creek edge at 80 yards early in bow season. And I called and rattled and he came around and he knew what he was doing. And he's the biggest buck I've ever seen. I bet you he was 180 plus. And he came up around behind me from the bottom of the creek bed, and I'm up on a side hill, and came in not 15 yards behind me, but maple tree, and it was early season. All the leaves were still on, and I could see his eyeball. I could see his nostrils. I was already turned around. I was at full draw, and I'm doing the hula dance with my bow at full draw, standing backwards in my stand, trying to find a hole to punch this arrow through. And let me tell you, the reason I always chirp and say that is because I couldn't find one. He ended up blowing and running, and I'd never seen him again, not even on a trail camera. And my issue was that it was just maple leaves. My arrow at 15 yards would have went through freaking maple leaves. Todd, what is your problem?
I would have passed. Honestly, I would have passed.
You would have, eh?
I agree there. We all
10
talk
times
about
out of 10. Honestly, 10 times out of 10 in that situation, I've been in it where I can't see a clear shot at the vitals where I think that arrow is going to go through, and I'm too worried about the deflection of the arrow, even though I'm shooting a crossbow. When I'm shooting compound or shooting crossbow, I'm too worried about that deflection, even a little bit going off target, and having to do the 8 hour, 3 hour overnight chase.
I hear you. I've done it.
For me, I don't need the meat that bad. I love the meat. Don't get me wrong, but I'm going to pass on that. And hopefully I didn't spook the animal and I get a chance at it the next time.
Yeah.
Because my heart would break if I had an animal like that and I took a shot and didn't get it.
It's the last thing we all want as hunters and outdoorsmen and enthusiasts is that. I mean, Dr. Todd, you didn't take that shot, and you have a lot of respect for that animal, that caliber, right? You waited, you couldn't do it. You could have shot and maybe got winged him or something, but you had a lot of respect for that animal in that instance there, which is just great to hear. It's a marginal shot. You're just not 100% confident, so you don't take it.
Let me tell you,
the last thing we all want.
Every one of my tree stands now has no brush within 50 yards all the way around the frickin' thing.
I can attest to that. I actually went and moved that stand 20 yards and into a better clearing and into that hole. The next year, I'm done. I can't have this happen again to me.
You got her.
I haven't had the chance in there. I had a few run-ins with him this year during the first muzzleloader hunt. A couple close calls. Just couldn't get it to happen. But yeah, I mean, the nice part was that animal was still walking last fall, and I had was fortunate enough he was pretty frequent, and I got to watch him through the soybean field all year.
So he's still alive,
sitting there.
So he
was last year.
The saga continues.
I hope so.
I hope it does, because what I've learned off that deer, it hasn't gone far in 2 years.
That's awesome. Well, now I'm pumped again. That's wicked.
So yeah. If I get some more pictures of him, maybe I'll text you a few of those to show you him. But yeah, he was big 2 years ago, and he just grew in mass and width. For 2019 season there, and hopefully he's around. I've had a couple early on in velvet. Kind of a month ago, I checked, and I've had a couple nice solid deer coming, growing with velvet. So that hopefully maybe one of them's him. I don't know.
Well, I got to tell you, I am impressed beyond belief that you've only been hunting for 6-7 years, you say, and this much intelligence on food plots, on your camera, on where to hang your stands, on getting big animals, watching big animals. My gosh, dude, it's like we're talking to a pro hunter that's been hunting for like 40 years. It's like we got Travis Shockey on the line. Like I got to tell you.
I don't think I'm quite that caliber.
Well, I honestly, and I didn't know, like I know you from setting up the big buck contest or the show and the Frau contest there that they have. And that's really the only way I know you. And now having this conversation, I feel like I know you so much better, but that's crazy because when we had this, it was just like, yeah, share your favorite story. And dude, like that's top notch. I am super impressed. I really am.
You had a good time tonight.
Yeah, this was awesome. I learned so much. That's so wicked.
Well, that's what's great about stuff like this. I mean, I've picking up a lot off of both of you, and I hope we can have further conversations. Tell some more hunting stories in the future, and just learn off of each other. I mean, because I'll be honest with you, like I try to get as much experience out in the field as I can, but a lot of what I've learned has been off of fellow hunters and outdoorsmen like that. Always talking, always learning, always asking questions. I think it's the most important thing to do, and I think with all of us in this sort of community is we all love it, right? We all love talking to other people about hunting stories and talking about what's working and what doesn't. And honestly, we learn a lot more, I think, from failures than we do success stories.
I couldn't agree more.
That's true. That is the truth. Unfortunately, it is the truth. But no, that's awesome. Yeah. That was some good stories, a good conversation. Really appreciate you coming on, Travis. Really do.
Oh, anytime.
Really, really, really wicked. So are you doing the big buck? Do you know yet if you're doing a big buck next spring?
You know what? We're hoping to. We know with the whole COVID situation, we don't know. Yeah. Really, we had to cancel our fair this year. Tough decision, but it's you got to keep the community safe and so that's what we're gonna have to do. If things get a little better, we might do some sort of event at a small capacity, maybe like a drive-in movie for everybody, or just something to give back to the community, right?
Yeah, that's awesome.
So we're brainstorming, but yeah, for now the fair is off till next year. But we're going to be planning the buck show again if the rules allow us to, and if things are going to be safe to do so.
Yeah, I think big buck shows are the new norm. Isn't that the wording? It's the new normal.
Yeah.
You got no option. Yeah, we have one every weekend. It's the new norm. No, that's awesome. All right. Well, appreciate you coming on, Travis. Really do. And
Bill, I appreciate you guys having me on here. It's great podcast, and I love listening to stuff like this. And I spend a lot of time in the tractors listening to stuff like this.
I never even thought of that. Yeah.
To be on here.
No, hey,
happy we can entertain and educate. Happy we can entertain and educate.
Yeah, and if I can leave with one closing remark.
Oh, heck yeah.
A lot of times you know, luck's a big part of what we do in hunting, right? You know, you got to get lucky sometimes. But I think the more work
speak
you put
for
ahead of
yourself,
time,
Travis. Speak for yourself. It's all talent over.
I think
Maybe
the more work you put in ahead of time, and you know, the harder you work at it, and the more you set up, and if you're hunting smarter and stuff like that, you need a little bit less at the end of the day. You know,
That's
right place,
absolutely
right time, and
Yep.
a lot of it's like that. You know, if you're in the deer, eventually you're going to see something big. You know, you got to keep pushing like that. And you know, I can tell you millions of stories of nothing happening, like going out and not seeing a deer. And but yeah, it's just you got to sometimes just make sure you're setting stuff up properly, hunt smart.
Nope.
Play the win.
Absolutely. Very well said.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the intelligent side of hunting. And sometimes I got to turn that off so I can enjoy it a little bit more. But yeah, with deer, you can't ever turn it off. You got to continually up your game. Yep. So no, appreciate you coming on, Bill. Thanks, my man, as usual. Until next week.
Sounds good.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Thanks, Travis.
Take care. Okay, that'll do it for today. So until next time, on behalf of Redneck Country Podcast, I'm Bill Thom.
I'm Todd Millard. And Scott Goodall.
Nope, I'm good.
Thanks for listening, everybody. If you want to be part of the podcast, by all means, hit us up at podcast@theredneckcountry.com. Again, that's podcast@theredneckcountry.com, and be part of it. Join us and have a blast. I hope you enjoyed it. Sitting around the campfire having some fun.